feel like a stranger in paradise here. You can only see me today.
Well, welcome everyone to the Pro Wrestling Bios. We were doing the Nature Boy Ric Flair last week, but now we got all three of us in here: PK Vower, Nate the F and Great. We're going to be talking about the icon, the man called Sting.
Winter's coming.
So, how you gentlemen doing today?
Doing A-OK today.
I'm doing pretty good.
So I just found out something about Sting today that I did not know. But apparently, of all the federations that he's been in, Sting is actually a 15-time world champion.
That is correct.
Well, damn.
That is something that a lot of people don't know about.
He is a... Now, we're starting his little career thing now. Apparently, he was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and then moved to California. When he did, he ended up co-owning a Gold's Gym Health Club, and he had no interest in professional wrestling, no television access, but decided to pursue a career in the wrestling after he had an event here in LA where he saw Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik and the British Bulldog and Andre the Giant perform. So and he also, I remember he made a story one time about while he was in California and he had the Ghost Gym that Hogan came and worked out at that gym. And he wanted to know, like, he kept asking my brother, he's like, who is that guy? And they told him who he was. And he was like, it piqued his interest in pro wrestling. So let me ask you guys this. If you guys were owning a gym there, and like Mike, if you were owning the gym in Rockford and you saw one of those guys that you grew up, you saw on TV come in, I mean, what would you think?
I think it's great foot traffic potentiality, and it would be. I would probably try to have them shoot some kind of a promo and plug the gym. Give me a little bit of, give me a little publicity, so to speak.
What about you, Nate?
I'm on Mike's side with this. I think the publicity would be the main thing. Obviously, I'd want to try to keep them as like regulars, so that way it's not one of those things where it's like a one and done kind of deal. But yeah, no, definitely would be on that same boat of just saying, hey, how about you partner up with us, maybe sponsor every now and then, just get that publicity going in, and then obviously business comes in, it's going to be a good time.
And see, the problem, though, with that one, Nate, is with their schedule, that's an individual that's never going to be able to feasibly be a regular to stick around, unfortunately. Well, but I do like what you're getting at.
If they're doing like a WWE schedule, yeah. But I mean, like AEW, Impact, they don't usually go to those tapings that often. So I probably more head towards them, because obviously if you see WWE in there, it's like, oh, hey, maybe just tag us in a post, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
But no, I see where you're coming from.
I think I would agree with you too. I mean, I would do everything in my power to promote the hell out of that in my gym. But like Nate said, if they were not under WWE contract and they were just a guy that wrestled on Impact or just wrestled on different kind of shows, I would offer the thing about, hey, we do our show here. Would you be interested, making an appearance or doing something like that and seeing what they would do with it? I mean, that would be a cool thing. But what's great about Sting's career, though, is starting out, he wrestled under the ring name Flash and teamed with Jim Justice Hellwig. And we all know who Mr. Jim Hellwig is.
The Ultimate Warrior.
So when you guys first saw the Blade Runners and you saw Sting and Warrior together, what'd you guys think?
Jeez, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, this is not real. No, so somebody had to Photoshop this. There's no way this happened. But I saw some of the matches. I'm like, oh shit, they actually were attacked. Okay, no, this is kind of cool. And the fact that their Blade Runners, more than likely off of the the movie Blade Runner, with Harrison Ford.
Yep.
It's one of those things where it just.
I,
Yes, Mike.
at least Sting was willing to go and try to learn after that. Unlike Hellwig, I try to block the Blade Runners out of my memory.
No.
It was a good start for both of them, but one just wanted to lift weights and look like a steroid jackass.
The one thing though about Sting though is they said, and apparently Jim Ross said that when he saw both of them back then, he saw the most potential in Sting. Because Sting was actually wanting, like PK said, Sting was wanting to learn.
Yeah.
And that's the differences there with those two. Now, we all saw, I don't know if y'all guys saw the WWE Network thing with the Warrior and when they did it, but Sting was talking about a story where they were on the road and they didn't have much money. And so they decided to take tuna into orange juice. I'm a protein guy. I would do that, but I don't think I would I don't think I'd put my tuna in my orange juice. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I would do that.
I can't think of anything good that's going to come out of putting protein in my orange juice.
No, definitely not.
So they did wrestle for a little bit in Continental Wrestling Association, and then they were in the Universal Wrestling Federation.
Weren't they also in Deep or Mid-South?
Yeah, Mid-South, yep.
I was going to say, because JR, that was where JR had seen them first. I just couldn't remember which one it was.
And, what's actually interesting was that Sting teamed with Rick Steiner in 1987, and they both lost the tag titles to the Lightning Express after Gilbert hit Sting with a boot during his little title defense. So pretty much, and that's when Sting had a little altercation with gentleman Chris Adams, who's another.
I remember Chris Adams.
A lot of people don't give Chris Adams enough credit, but he's.
Oh, a lot of people don't.
So when Sting finally arrived on his own, the rise to stardom, he went to the Jim Crockett Promotions, which became NWA, which became WCW. And that's when Dusty Rhodes was using the opening bout of the Crockett's first pay-per-view, Starrcade 87, to showcase the young superstar Sting, partnered with Michael P.S. Hayes and Jimmy Garvin. That's a name you don't hear every day, Jimmy fucking Garvin.
No. I hear him every so often, but not frequently, no.
No, you don't hear about Garvin too often.
But the biggest thing was, and we talked about this during the Flair thing, the Sting 45-minute draw what he had with Ric Flair in his first title defense against his first ever title match. World title match. He went to 45 minutes with Ric Flair. A guy who was supposed to be green is this big surfer blonde guy. And you would think that has no ability whatsoever, but Ric Flair and him had the best chemistry I ever saw when I first saw Sting back then.
Yeah, they did. After Sting actually took the time to learn how to hone his craft, I don't think there's really been anybody he's had a truly bad match with. I think he's made everybody look good. Except for, Starrcade, 97?
Yeah.
But that wasn't Sting's fault, or that was a complete fucking snafu thanks to refereeing and Hogan. But we won't go there.
We're going to probably have to go there when we talk about it.
I'm talking about when we're 10 years prior to that still. We're in the 80s still.
Oh, God. 10 years.
What's interesting is that when Sting finally won, there's actually a point where Sting actually fought a guy called Black Scorpion, which was actually Ric Flair under the mask.
Yep. And the only reason that they did that is because they didn't NWA and them didn't take the time to build up another heel. Everything was basically in pre-WCW NWA was basically built around Ric Flair. So when the belt wasn't on Flair, everybody was just kind of at a standstill, like, oh shit, what the fuck do we do?
Yeah, man.
And by the way, I'll tell everybody this. Everybody that's talked about that dream match between Sting and Undertaker, it did happen in WCW.
Yes, it did. When Undertaker was still green. Sort of green.
Sort of green, yeah. I mean, it did happen. I mean, it was never... I only saw a photo. I don't think they ever showed the video, did they?
I don't believe so, because I think that was when he was still wrestling as Mean Mark Callis or something like that?
Yeah, as part of the Skyscrapers, yeah.
Yep. The revamped Skyscrapers.
Yes, the revamped one. And Sting also had some pretty good little stuff back in the 80s. He was also had a good feud with the Great Muta.
And Vader. I mean, Vader was just a beast altogether, so...
And then they had a Thunderdome cage match between the two teams, which, you know, Sting and Flair won at Halloween Havoc 89. The alliance with Flair resulted in Sting joining a newly reformed, now face Four Horsemen, along with the Andersons, Arn and Ole.
Oh, Christ, Ole.
And that's what started the whole thing of screwing Sting again.
Yep. I did not know that about that heel. Prodigal heel. Yeah, that. I didn't know that they were trying to get Warrior for that one. I wonder, would he come in as the Dingo Warrior still for that one?
Oh, that's right.
I do. Do you guys remember when Sting also had RoboCop on his side?
Oh, God.
Oh, you had to fucking say it, didn't you?
I mean, it's there. I mean, that's as bad as it sounds. It was there. I mean, but another thing too was I can go as bad if I want. If I can talk about the Shockmaster coming through the.
See, until you mentioned that, Kev, I was this.
Oh no!
Now we're this. Yeah, I had to go and bring up the freaking stupid ass RoboCop gimmick that they had to all to cross promote a movie. Don't get me wrong, movie's great, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
No, but you know what's interesting too is that Sting. I saw one of his interviews, and they were. I think it was Jim Ross. He was on Jim Ross's podcast, and he was talking about it. And Sting said, "Look, I've been through a lot of bullshit. He's seen the good and the bad and the ugly, and you can't get any more uglier than having RoboCop on your side. I'm sorry, that's just horrible."
So I don't mean to cut you off, Kev, but I think that it actually does sum up career of Sting in a nutshell. I've dealt with a lot of bullshit because all throughout this show, we're going to be talking about so many things that Sting had to endure, and we've only just hit the tip of the iceberg with Shockmaster and RoboCop.
Shit, Shockmaster. I don't even remember. Yeah, because he did introduce Shockmaster, didn't he?
Yeah.
The only time that I really actually cheered after the 90s for anything Hogan related was when it was 1994 when they had the War Games in WCW. But more of that was because I liked the gimmick of the Dungeon of Doom still.
Oh, very nice.
Because it was Hogan, Luger, Macho, and Sting against Ming, also known as Haku, Kamala, Zodiac, also known as Brutus the Barber Beefcake, also known as Booty Man, Ed Leslie, the Disciple.
See, now if we
Hogan's best friend, which is the only reason he got a job anywhere, and I'm calling him the late great because to me he was, because he's, for a guy his size, he could move. John Tenta, also known as Earthquake. Of course, in that match, he was known as the Shark.
The bad thing about that is we already talked about the Shockmaster and RoboCop, and then he brought up the Booty Man. I mean,
The Booty Man.
I mean, the only good thing about that gimmick was he had Kimberly Page as the booty girl, but that was only. I mean,
I'm just imagining the Booty Man being like the Boogeyman, but it's like, I'm the Booty Man. I'm coming for that ass.
but you know what's good though is that Sting won his first ever world title on January 11, 1991.
Yes, he did.
Man.
And I remember, and that's when all the stuff happened when you start having the Super Brawls. We started getting those, and they started changing the name to WCW.
Because Jim Crockett Promotions essentially went out of business, and they sold it to Turner Broadcasting.
Now Sting also had a really good feud. There was one time where they had him in feuding with Jake the Snake. Jake the Snake left WWF, came to WCW, and
he did for a little bit.
And then that was that feud between Sting and Rick Rude, where Rick Rude claims that Sting broke his neck. And you guys remember that match at all between him and Rick Rude?
A little bit, yes. It's been a long time since I've seen that one.
So I'm going to tell everybody in advance, they're going to talk about a lot of WCW NWA stuff I'm going to have no recollection of. I am mainly here to talk about Sting's time in TNA, but also I'll sprinkle in some WCW knowledge that I can. So
I know more about the WCW and then his little bit of WWE run. And then obviously I think we all have a little bit of knowledge on his AEW. But that actually works out perfect because aside from what I've seen a little bit of on YouTube as it comes to talking about like Joker, Sting, and all that, never watched TNA or Impact really.
Oh my God, I'm going to have a fun time.
When it was in its infancy, I could not stand. Now, actually, I love the idea of it. I could not stand that 6-sided ring. Now I think it's one of the greatest things on the fucking planet. I love the idea of it because it's a break from the norm.
Right. But like I said, we'll get into that a little bit later. Kev, we were talking about, honestly, you guys talking about Sting and Jake the Snake is just dream match heaven. Had I see that matchup, I would have been like over the moons just thinking, I want this. I want to see that. Okay, I want this more than ever. Can this be like a big time event, please? I like this idea.
This is before Jake kind of started getting, because Jake was always kind of a well-known, but this was before, I think, his WWF days.
Oh. Before
he really kind of took off.
There was a point where he left WWF after 91. He had that WrestleMania match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 8.
Yeah, and then I think then after that is where he jumped ship to WCW for a little bit. You're right.
Yeah. And then he was. Now, if you go back, Nate, and look on some of the YouTube, you might be able to find that Sting and Jake the Snake. And that's should be lurking somewhere in the YouTube archive somewhere.
I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. But we're moving on.
But there was that point where he had that match with Rick Rude. There was a little mistake Sting made during the match that did legitimately end Rick Rude's career. And it was it was an honest mistake by Sting. It wasn't like it wasn't like on purpose. It wasn't like a Goldberg kick to Bret Hart in the face. It was, you could tell that Sting did not mean to do what he did.
Damn.
But
I was kind of hoping it was going to be like a Randy Orton, Kofi Kingston deal, like Rude loses his temper or something. But hearing that it's a career-ending deal, that's where it's like, oh, that's not the direction I thought it was going to go.
So then, Sting had that good feud with Big Van Vader, and PK's right. If you want to talk about a big guy that can work really good, Big Van Vader was one guy that.
Holy crap! Yeah, he could.
Vader time.
I'll say to you, Nate, take notes because you should try to do the Vader bomb, man.
Oh God! My homage to Vader, the Vader bomb. And then
ironically enough, I decided to pop into the comments along with being on here because I just found that video and put it into the live chat on YouTube for this video about there. Yep, there it is.
Yep.
And that is the Jake debuting in 1992 and
Sting?
basically attacking Sting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to look that up after this broadcast.
So, then around 93, they were having he beat Vader. He got revenge on Vader by beating him for the WCW title on March 11th in London, England. Lost it back to Vader 6 days in Dublin, Ireland. Then Sting teamed with newly WCW newcomer Davey Boy Smith to beat the team of Vader and Sid Vicious at Beach Blast. It wasn't called Bash at the Beach. It was called Beach Blast back then.
Huh.
Same idea, but just different name yet.
So we're going into the 94-95 thing here. That's when the whole 94 happened and everybody's seeing Hulk Hogan coming in to WCW.
Yep. Hogan signs with WCW from WWF. Mm-hmm. Pretty much instantly puts him into the title run because it's Hulk Hogan. You'd be crazy not to. You don't have the guy who's arguably, as much as I can't stand the man now, the biggest name in professional wrestling at the moment. And at that particular moment, you don't have him come in and be one of your opening match kind of guys. He's instantly going to be in your spotlight against guys like Ric Flair and Sting.
Especially when we did that Ric Flair thing, and Nate knows what I'm talking about with this one. When you have Hulk Hogan coming in at WCW and WWF didn't pull the trigger of having that Hogan Flair match at WrestleMania. Now you have Hogan coming in, you have a chance to have the biggest match you got in Bash at the Beach between him and Flair. I did see an interview once where Sting said he was excited about Hogan coming in, but he was also not excited because he knew that a part of him was going to get pushed back.
Yep. And then to a degree, that's what happened with Surfer versions, I guess, Surfer version, Sting. So we had the spiked, short, bleach blonde hair, the colorful face paint that looked kind of warrior-esque / road warrior. So it kind of was a mix between Hawk and the Ultimate Warrior for his face paint at that point.
And then we have, and what's cool is, and then Macho Man decides to join right after that.
Yep.
So Hogan, Savage, and Sting form an alliance because he had not only you had the Four Horsemen after him, but you had the Dungeon of Doom after them as well.
See, and if you hear about that stable, everybody loves to shit on it, but I think that one is highly, highly underrated. I mean, you had Ming, you had Haku, Ming, whatever you want to call him, who was one of the strongest freaking men, one of the only people that Andre the Giant was afraid of. So when you've got a guy that's 7'3", 7'4", whatever, 500-600 pounds, that he won't even fuck with that guy. Yeah, you could do a lot with that.
The Dungeon of Doom was very underrated because Kevin Sullivan was a pretty damn good booker too.
Oh yeah, well, for the most part, he was a good booker. Unfortunately, he did book himself into a divorce, but that's besides the point.
Right. That is true.
We don't want to go into that Benoit stage there, not yet.
I mean, I'm just stating the facts.
You are stating the facts of life.
Yes. Dungeon of Doom, and then Lex Luger comes back. They had the first ever Nitro. Luger shows up. Wow, everybody still thought he was under contract with WWF. Those were the good old days where you didn't have the internet to tell you, hey, Luger's contract ended and he's coming to join. It was the excitement of
shit. Even when the internet was in its infancy, you still had stuff like that could happen. Look at what happened with Rick Rude.
Yeah. From
DX, and he's on the video feed for WWE, WWF at the time, but he's showing up live on Monday Night Nitro.
And then we have the whole, but then we had the thing with Luger where, Hogan and Luger are not getting along. Hogan thinks Luger's a turncoat. And they all decide to do that big War Games match where they all wear like the face paints,
military colors.
And then Hogan decides to go dark, turns black, and he starts wearing black colors.
Yep.
And him and Giant were feuding, and then they had that.
No. He did the black. He did the dark days of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Prior to that, because on that Super Brawl, I almost said podcast, pay-per-view, as they were hyping this double cage match up, he came out, he ripped off the black tank top and everything, and he threw it in a garbage can, lit it all on fire, started sporting the yellow and all that crap all over again, talking about the Hulkamaniacs, and everybody's on the same page.
Do you know we actually had our first ever Hogan and Sting match on Nitro in 1995?
Oh.
I did not know that one.
Hogan was wearing the black, and, he wasn't trusting anybody, so him and Sting had this little match that went. Sting had him in the Scorpion Deathlock, and Giant and everybody came in there and beat them both up. So which led to that whole Halloween Havoc thing where, Hogan and Giant had that monster truck fight. And then the whole
Giant falling off the top of the building.
Then we had the whole Hogan being in this bear hug, and here comes the Yeti, and then Luger's over there torture racking Macho Man,
and then you got Big Show, the Giant and the Yeti basically double penetrating Hogan.
He's not wrong.
Worst double bear hug I've ever seen in my life.
We can always. Have you guys seen the gifts that people done with the Hogan and Warrior test of strength? It looks like Warrior's doing something to him. But that's. But yeah, then that whole happened where Hogan decided to, like PK said, Hogan came back with the red and yellow, and him and Sting and Macho Man are all cool with each other now, and that's when Macho Man won the World War III for the WCW title. So then this is when Sting started to get rid of the blonde hair, and he started going with his natural hair color. He had kind of like the back. I like to call it the boy band haircut. He had the bow cut. He started kind of taking away the blonde spiky hair. He still had the colorful outfits on. And, then we get to the part where Sting in the early 96, Sting and Luger, Sting grew longer hair, replacing the blonde flat top. Him and Luger were, standing in. They beat the duo of Harlem Heat for the WCW tag team titles. But it was the summer of 96 when Sting was the first one to stand up to one Razor Ramon Scott Hall. You guys remember that whole Scott Hall Sting concert?
I did.
Oh. It's a new fact for me.
I do remember that. Sorry, I stepped away to grab my refill. That and my dog was being a pain in the ass.
So then when you see Scott Hall come, and then that's when he said, I got a bigger surprise. Nash debuts a week later. They go with the Great American Bash. They powerbomb Eric Bischoff right through the table, which was a really wicked powerbomb off the table, too.
That's one of the few jackknifes that I've actually liked. I never really liked the jackknife just because it didn't really look like. I like the high impact look of a power bomb. I don't really care for the just pick up and just kind of
Yeah.
Like I loved how guys like Vader did a power bomb where they held it and they slammed down with it.
So then that's when we have the Bash of the Beach. Sting, Luger, and Flair. Sting, Luger, and Savage decides to team up to face the Outsiders and their third member,
Their mystery partner.
So Luger gets knocked out probably the beginning of the match, and then it's between Sting and Savage versus Nash and Hall.
Fun fact before we get to that.
Yeah.
Does anybody, Kev, do you know who the original third man was supposed to be?
Sting.
Yep.
Yes.
The original third man was supposed to be Sting turning heel instead of what we now know as the NWO with Hulk Hogan. But Hulk pulled that creative control line at the last second and said it would be probably better for business, which in the long run, as much as I hate to say it, it was.
Now, Bischoff and Nash have had different stories about that. Even Hall has. They said that at first they approached Hogan about it. Hogan said no.
Yeah. Hogan, that is what Bischoff said. Is it Hogan? Hogan was the first pick. Hogan said no because he thought it was going to be horrible for his wallet. So they went to ask Sting, and then Hogan thought it over and he eventually came back and said, "You know what? I'm in."
Now, Kevin Nash said they did try to get Bret Hart because at that time Bret Hart was a free agent.
Yep. Bret had been hemming and hawing about signing with re-signing with WWF.
So if it wasn't going to be Hogan and it wasn't going to be Bret, then Sting was the next one. And then I think they said late that pretty much that weekend, Hogan's like, "All right, I'll do it."
I believe it was the pay-per-view was the Bash at the Beach was Sunday or Saturday. And Hogan agreed the night before.
So you guys have all seen the video. You guys in the comment section, y'all seen the video. It comes out. Here it goes. They're all down. Here comes Hogan. Dusty Rhodes and Tony Schiavone are excited. But Bobby Heenan screws it.
Yep. Heenan kind of gives it away I think unintentionally, but Heenan gives it away.
I mean, he's like he's like, oh, whose side is he on? And Dusty Rhodes is like, what are you saying? He's like, whose side is he on? And then he's like, go get him, Hulkster. And then all of a sudden Hogan drops that leg on Macho Man twice. And then Sting gets in the ring. They knock Sting out. Hogan and them, they're all in the ring. Would you guys ever expected so much garbage being thrown at him?
I mean, honestly, him turning heel was a big turning point for wrestling. But that kind of reaction, honestly, no, I would not have expected that.
I'll admit, I was a Hogan fan as a kid. Can't stand the man now. But
I think
at that moment, my little 10-year-old mind was just.
I think what was great about it, what made it meaner, is the fact he had the red and yellow on when he did it, and then he said, "I did it for the money. I didn't do it for these kids. I did it for the money." And it was this. And then, well, what made it work better with Hogan is because all three were from WWF, so It made it look like an invasion. And then for the coming weeks, Hogan, Nash, and Hall were out there. Some of the best nitros I saw was when they came out there and they were beating up on Sting. They spray painted Chris Benoit and Ric Flair, and they were
that nice little NWO logo.
Then Ted DiBiase joins, and Sting and Luger decides to chase after him, and they steal a cop car, and they chase after Ted DiBiase. And that's when the Giant decides to join the NWO.
The first time.
First time. So then they had this thing where it was really cool. Luger and the Horsemen were supposed to face them in the War Games, and Sting and Luger were like, "Look, telling Arn and Ric Flair, let us be your partner. We want to face them." So they agreed to let Sting and Luger on there. So then Luger's on a Nitro, and then all of a sudden he hears Sting's voice in a limo. And then we get the imposter Sting beating up Luger with the NWO, and everybody's not trusting Sting. So then they go into the War Games match. Sting goes in and cleans house with the NWO. He looks at Luger and I do believe he flips Luger to bird, or he tells him to fuck off.
I can't remember at this point.
And he walks away.
Yep, he just leaves, opens the cage. They open the cage back up, and he leaves.
And then Sting comes back the next night on Nitro, and he's like, I've given my heart, my blood, my sweat, and my tears for this company. And he's like...
And I do believe at this point still he was a mixture of the color. Like, because I don't think The Crow had really taken off as a cult classic yet. As a big hit.
Not yet.
So he was still... His hair was growing out, but he hadn't started donning, I think, all the black face paint. Black and white.
So he comes back a month later. He has all black on, but you can still tell he has a little bit of color to his pants.
Yep.
And he hasn't fully done the full face white. And he goes and he talks. That's one of the last time he talks. And he looks at the offer to MWO. He looks at the cheap Sting and goes, This is your cheap carbon copy. And he goes, The only thing to know sure about Sting is nothing's for sure. And he walks away and does not take the NWO offer. But then they come back toward the end of December when WCW and WCW and NWO are having that brawl. Sting comes out, walks right past Arn Anderson, and Arn Anderson starts punching him. And Sting takes him down, and then Mysterio jumps on Sting, and he takes Sting down, and Sting walks away. So then we go on into 97. We're slowly building to that Hogan and Starrcade match. Macho Man decides to come back. They decide to work together. But then Sting and Savage joins the NWO. Now, Sting didn't put the NWO shirt on. He was just standing there and not saying a word, and they put the NWO on him. And then the Uncensored happened, and Sting showed his alliance with WCW.
Yep.
Takes down Hogan, Hall, Nash, and Savage. And then for months, we see Sting in the rafters coming down with the bats, giving the one of my favorite Sting moments is when they're all out there fighting, and Diamond Dallas Page gets hit in the head by Hogan, and Sting stands over Diamond Dallas Page and takes him in the rafters with him.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite Sting moments.
I was just watching something the other day. The very first time that Sting was supposed to come down from the rafters, right before he jumped, the crew had said, wait, don't jump yet, because his harness was actually on backwards. So if he would have jumped, this is going to be a horrible taste. But it just to give everybody kind of that watches us a perspective of what it would be, he'd have pulled an Owen Hart if he would have jumped. And it wouldn't have been because there was a malfunction. It would have just been because it was on incorrectly. So while they're waiting for his cue for him to jump, these guys are taking his entire harness off as he's up in the rafters 50, 60 feet above the ring, holding on to a bar, basically, and that's the only thing keeping him from falling to his death.
Sheesh.
Ironically, I just watched and learned that one last night on like YouTube Shorts. Like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
And what's interesting around this time too is, and Sting credits the Crow Sting to Scott Hall. Scott Hall is the one that gave him the idea while watching the Crow movie with Brandon Lee. So he credits Scott Hall there. That's how masterful Scott Hall was as far as a wrestling mind goes.
Oh shit! I mean, yeah. I mean, also take a look. Hey, yo.
Yeah.
He took the gimmick for a movie that Vince McMahon had never even heard of, that was a popular freaking movie, and modeled the entire Razor Ramon character off of that. And Vince thought it was something he came up with on his own, because Vince just didn't know anything about the media at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, how much do you guys believe this story? I don't know. I'm going to kind of jump back a little bit here, but now Hogan claims that when he wanted to turn heel at WrestleMania 6, he was trying to push Vince to sign Sting the first time.
I'm not gonna lie. If it came out of Hogan's mouth, I don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't kind of believe it.
At this point in time, all the things that Hogan has said that have been debunked, unless Vince and Sting come out and corroborate it, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I know Sting said they've had multiple conversations, but he didn't go as far as back as that goes. But now we're building to Starrcade. The one thing everybody wanted to see was Sting and Hogan. I remember Sting with, J.J. Dillon came out, gave him a contract to face Mr. Perfect, and he ripped up the contract. Crowd was saying Hogan, we want Hogan. And then they finally gave Sting and Hogan the match, and everybody really wanted to see it.
They built to that.
Yeah.
They had Sting giving Hogan like a mannequin head of him, and then ziplining from the top of the Nitro stage to the ring to beat up the NWO as Nitro's going off the air. I mean, for as much as the build to that Starrcade match with Sting and Hogan in 97, unfortunately, the match was really underwhelming for the build up to it. But the build to it, oh my God, it had you invested.
And what's interesting about that is that Sting took a whole entire year and a half and did not wrestle once. Which probably
shows to the testament of his character. That he didn't even really have to wrestle and get in the ring and do anything to be over and to have people put asses in seats.
And it probably saved his career a little bit. Saved a little years on it.
Yeah. Just that 1 year probably was able to save 4 or 5 years of his career.
Now, right before Starrcade,
because now we've got 62-year-old Sting acting like 30-year-old Sting, diving off of entryways into tables. Grandpa, sit the fuck down, please.
The NWO finally does get their hands on Sting, because there was one point where Sting made a mistake. He came down, he dropped the bat, and he was going to go after Hogan, and they finally got a hold of him. And I was like, wow, that's the first time I've seen Sting take a beating in probably a year and a half, maybe 2.
Because I do, if I remember correctly, he needed to be saved by some of the other WCW guys on the roster.
And this is around the time, and this is around the time Bret Hart is debuting on WCW. Yep. So this is like around the same time. I mean, I honestly, I don't know if I would have debuted Bret around that same time, because it takes away the star power you got with Bret, which Bret should have been red hot with WCW. They fucked that up.
Yeah, and Bischoff and them even openly admit that to this day, that they dropped the ball with Bret. I mean, you've got guys. Bischoff says it. Cornette has said it. Bret's even said it. I mean, the guy who signed him, when he's the one who said that we dropped the ball, that's where you know shit hit the fan right off the bat.
So then we have the Starrcade match. Sting's kind of a little bit rusty because he hadn't wrestled in a year and a half. During that time, Hogan has a really bad knee injury. So both men are not at the...
They're not at 100%.
They're not 100%. So...
And then you've got an incompetent referee.
I saw the interview that Sting said. Sting did say that the beginning, when they got there for the biggest pay-per-view in WCW buy rate history, is Starrcade 97. Mm-hmm. He said when they got there, he was under the impression that he was going to win the world title. It was only an hour before the match began that he found out that it was going to be a cheap way of winning.
Yeah, and again, that one comes down to Hogan with his creative control, because he was whereas Sting was worried about the business, Hogan was kind of like the Ultimate Warrior and only worried about Hogan. So what was supposed to be a fast count, Hogan told Nick Patrick, count normal. And that is why it was a screwy finish for that match. If he would have done an actual fast count that warranted Bret Hart coming out and essentially calling for the match to be restarted, that would have been a hell of a lot better. But
so then we get the thunder that later that week where J.J. Dillon says the title's going to be held up. They're going to have that match of Super Brawl. Actually, no, they did the Nitro right afterwards, the next night, and it was a screwy finish there too. And then they said, okay, well, we're going to give up the belt. That's the first time Sting talked in about a year and a half, and he said, "You got no guts." Threw the belt at J.J. Dillon, told Hogan he was a dead man. Finally wins the belt at Super Brawl. Has a good feud there going with Scott Hall. And then he ends up losing the title. This is around the time that Hogan and Nash and them were splitting up. That's why we're about to have the Wolfpack. We're about to have the NWO Black and White. Nash comes in, helps Savage become champ. And they beat Sting. And that's when the NWO Wolfpacks form. Luger joins. And then they're all trying to fight to see who. This is where the Giant joins the second time.
Yep.
Second time. So then, him and Giant are tag team champions at this point. And Sting comes in, has the black and white shirt, hugs Hogan, slams Giant, rips it up, and he's the Wolfpack Sting. What do you guys think of the Wolfpack Sting? Did he not kind of remind you of the old school Surfer Sting a little bit more? Relaxed?
A little bit, yeah. He seemed like he had a little bit more fire behind it instead of just the brooding. So,
Do you remember the Wolfpack Sting much, Nate? Or
Wolfpack Sting, I actually got a little bit of an exposure with in TNA, actually. So I didn't really know about that until it was popped up on the TNA show. And then when I saw a lot of the, WCW stuff, it's like, okay, that's where he got the inspiration. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, this is where things get weird, because then they had NWO splitting up, and you got the black and white and the red and the black and who's on whose team, instead of just, ending NWO altogether. They just,
and then they're feuding with each other, and then you get all the branch off ones like the LWO, and
which is one of the best factions to come out of that.
still highly underrated group with the LWO with Eddie.
It was like the majority of the cruiserweight division, wasn't it?
Pretty much, because a lot of the cruiserweights were the luchadors.
Basically, the cruiserweights were just like, you know what, we're sick and tired of all this NWO bullshit, so let's just create our own stuff. What can we do? Well, we can't say NWO because then again, but let's see, we're Latinos, so how about Latino World Order?
Yep.
And he's just
the downside. The downside for the NWO part, though, was that pretty much everybody started joining it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the LWO, there was a Raw here recently where Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio was wearing the LWO shirts.
That's
I
awesome.
saw highlights of that.
I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, well, that's paying homage right there. But Sting does have a really good feud during that time. At Halloween Havoc, him and Bret Hart had a physical altercation with each other, and that was when they were going back and forth with each other. Bret hits him with the bat a few times. Sting had an injury, and then around that time, though, that's when Sting found.
I will say I did like the finish for that match. Which, what happened is, since I know Nate didn't see this, it was a good technical match to me. Both guys were showcased. They brought the best out of each other. Which I don't think Bret could have a bad match with anybody. I think Bret brought the best out of everybody too. But Sting goes for the Stinger Splash, and it looks like he overshoots it, and he hits his head on the buckle post, and knocks himself out. So he's literally laying over the top rope, just limp. So Brett takes the bat, Sting's precious baseball bat, and dives off the ropes a couple times and hits him, and then puts him in the sharpshooter. And the whole time he's yelling for the ref to wake up, and Sting is just motionless. So Brett wins by knockout because the referee, there was a ref. Of course, there has to be a ref bump in a big name match like that. And since the ref was coming too, and that all he sees is Brett with the sharpshooter on and Sting not moving. So kind of like the WrestleMania 13 minus the blood.
The bad thing about this was not only was Sting having an injury, but at that time he had a divorce from his first wife, because at that time Sting said that he rode pretty hard back then. He done some pretty bad stuff with drugs and cheating. But that's when he said he found God. That's when he changed his life around. Was around that point. So then, we go into 99. The NWO decides to join back together, the whole finger poke of doom.
Ugh.
Bullshit. Then that's when they made the comment, well, you know what? We just found out that Mick Foley's going to win their title. Everybody clicked over.
Yep. And that was the end of 83 weeks.
That was the end of 83 weeks. And then Sting decides to join back. At that time, though, Sting was, at that time, still part of the Wolfpack. So when he come back, he had the black and white on. And I remember that him and Nash and Sid and Savage were fighting for the WCW title.
Yep.
They had Sting. They were trying to accuse Sting of hitting Nash with a Hummer. And Savage finally wins the belt again. And look who comes back and takes it from him. Hogan does.
Shocker.
And, Nash and him had that match. And then Sting and Hogan wanted to have their match, and then a fall brawl. Sting does the unthinkable. Luger's coming over there saying, "Don't trust Hogan." Da 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 da. Brett's over there on Hogan's side, which Brett at that time is trying to get a match with Hogan.
Yeah,
trying to.
And that would have been one that I wouldn't have mind seeing, even though it probably would have been a shit-tastic match to me, because it's.
Yeah.
It would have been like, to me, it seemed like it would have been a more serious version of when it was Shawn and Hogan. But
then what we got was Sting turning heel with Lex Luger. Hogan go there, and him and Hogan go into Halloween Havoc. This is around the time Vince Russo's writing for WCW.
God, that's right. That is why I can't remember any of that, because once I heard that Russo got hired, I stopped watching WCW.
I'll just clarify this much. Hogan went down to the ring in the street clothes and let Sting pin him 1, 2, 3. Then later on, Sting comes out, wants a fight. Goldberg comes out, beats him for the belt. Then they vacated the title, and that's where they had that tournament where Benoit finally won the world title before he left with the Radicals. And then Bret Hart finally gets a title run. Then we go into 2000.
I didn't think Bret ever had a WCW title run.
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, no, he did.
Okay, that was literally near the end of it then. Wow.
Then they decided to make the NWO 2000, and that's when he already had that concussion from Goldberg, and then he had that hardcore match with Terry Funk, and Terry Funk's not going to take you easily, so probably made it worse for him.
Probably.
And so then that's when they had the whole Millionaires Club. What do you guys think of Sting's feud with Vampiro?
Underwhelming.
I actually did watch his match with them. I agree. Underwhelming, I think, is the best way to put it.
And that, honestly, that's not for any lack of trying for Sting. I was never high on Vampiro.
And I forgot to mention this in 98, but Sting was the first guy to actually bring the fight to Goldberg, because I remember he had that match with Goldberg right after Fall Brawl in 98 when Hogan screwed him. But he's the only one that actually looked like he had Goldberg on the ropes. And him and Goldberg had some pretty damn good matches, too, between those two.
Is this before or after Regal?
This is after Regal.
Okay, well then Sting wasn't the first one. Regal definitely had Goldberg on the ropes too.
Well, yeah, yeah. I'm talking about like as far as a bigger name goes. Like,
No, I get what you're saying. I just wanted to be a smartass because as much as when I was a kid, I liked what I now dub Gold Turd because he's got a look, and I'll give him this. For his age, he's still in phenomenal shape. Doesn't look much different aside from the hair turned gray instead of it being blonde. But just the guy can't wrestle to save his fucking life.
he doesn't got the traps anymore. He's not as big.
I mean, of course he's not as big, but then it's been 20 years since the height of his look. But
So then we go, what's cool is that when WCW finally ends, which I wish WCW was still around. I was a big WCW fan. But they started the Nitro with Sting versus Flair, and they ended the last Nitro with Sting and Flair.
Yep.
And that's when they started to do that Australian tour. I think Sting took part of that one with Jarrett and Steiner and them. But this is when it gets great, Nate, because this is around the time where Sting decides to join TNA.
Is this your transition to tell me to take over?
Yes, sir.
All right. So there were a couple appearances where Sting kind of appeared with TNA early on. Nothing really too major, but it wasn't until the end of 2005 into 06 where Sting would actually start making more appearances. He actually has one match with Christian Cage, them teaming up against Jeff Jarrett and Monty Brown. Cage and Sting are victorious.
The alpha male.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I've been watching a lot of old Impact, and I've appreciated the alpha male so much more now.
Marcus Corvon,
aka Monty Brown. So Sting comes out on TV and he announces his retirement. Honestly, I think he's the one person that's probably had more retirements than Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, for that matter. That being said, he's trying to enjoy his life, but Jeff Jarrett's like, I don't really believe that. So we're kind of getting into the Jarrett-Sting saga here. So Jarrett hires Alex Shelley and Eric Young to basically spy on Sting. And Sting is just like, okay, you want to do that? Then I'm going to show up at Destination X. He does as Steve Borden, not as Sting. He comes in his regular clothes, and he is beating down Planet Jarrett, which had like Jeff Jarrett, America's Most Wanted, Abyss. But this also debuted Scott Steiner in TNA. So it was kind of awesome to see Sting return. And then out of nowhere, here's Scott Steiner, still juiced. And now he has a chest tattoo. So it was interesting.
Great value Kane.
Was this the?
Don't get me wrong. I loved Abyss. I love the character Abyss, but that is when I first saw him, that is what I thought was it's the Walmart Kane.
Now, was this the event where Steiner did the recliner to Sting and Steve Borden and knocked them out and all that?
Yes, this is that exact one. And this built up to Lockdown, where they had a lethal lockdown match, which was Planet Jarrett, America's Most Wanted, Jeff Jarrett, and Scott Steiner taking on Sting, AJ Styles, Ron Killings, now known as R-Truth, and Rhino. A very unique pairing, but you know something? The build-up for it was actually cool, where they were saying like, oh, we're sick of you, Jeff. We don't want to deal with you, blah, blah, blah. And basically the three front runners were the ones that got picked. So Team Sting beats Team Jarrett at Lockdown, but Sting is just like, I want to face you in a tag match. So we have the match set up for Sacrifice, which is Sting and a partner of his choosing versus Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett. Now, this is where we get to the kooky side and more entertaining side of Sting, because he basically just does these mind games where he's like, I'm going to let you pick my partner. So I'm going to give you two choices this week. Choose tunnel number 1 or tunnel number 2. Jeff's like, no, I'm going to choose next week. Okay. So it's revealed that the two guys in the tunnels were Buff Bagwell and Lex Luger. And trust me, it gets better. So next week, he said, you only got one choice. Either you take the partner or you push it again to next week. Jeff's like, pushing it to next week. And God, if they would have just said yes, this would have been an awesome one. The person that was revealed for that week was Rick Steiner. So
that would have been a hell of a pick.
Oh my God. So just imagine Scott
and Jeff versus Sting and Rick. That probably would have put some major bucks in the seats for just the nostalgia of it. But eventually
I had a
Sting
feeling.
so Sting eventually picks Samoa Joe, who is the undefeated Samoan submission machine at the time. And Sting and Joe pick up the victory, but Jeff and Steiner get the last word by beating him down. Another Steiner recliner. Sting is saying, okay, now I need to make sure that Jeff does not win the NWA world title because NWA and TNA had a working relationship at that point.
Yep.
So King of the Mountain matchup and what is now known as the Orlando Screwjob, where Earl Hebner got involved. Shocker. He cost Sting and Christian the match. Jeff Jarrett eventually wins the title. And then Jim Cornette comes in as the new powerhouse, power person. You know, he basically says,
the on-screen general manager, essentially.
Yes, basically. He says he's going to pick 4 guys, and the winner faces you for the NWA title. He picks Christian Cage, Samoa Joe, Scott Steiner, and Sting. Sting, even though being blinded early on in the match, picks up the win. Does not win the title at that year's Sacrifice because Christian Cage gets involved. So Sting is saying, Jeff, give me one more shot. Name your terms. I will agree to them. And Jeff says, okay, you want my title? Okay, I'll give you a title shot. But here's the thing. At Bound for Glory, you have to put up your career. So Sting is off for about a month to kind of prep and get, train, get ready for the matchup. And Jeff Jarrett is having probably the worst few months of his career. He goes through a lie detector test, shockingly gets found out that he's a liar by Jim Cornette of all people. He has to face Samoa Joe in a match where the fans are at ringside and are told, go ahead and beat the ever-living piss out of Jeff Jarrett with belts. That's a thing.
I remember that, yeah.
And then we had Kurt Angle debuting during that time. So he's announced as the special guest enforcer for that match. So we get to the matchup, Sting versus Jeff Jarrett. Sting is looking the absolute best of his career. He looks fit. He's got a new face paint job, new gear. He just looks absolutely amazing. And there are 2 things I remember most about this matchup with Jeff Jarrett and Sting. One is that there was a 10 count during that deal. Just as they reached 9, Kurt Angle literally comes in, grabs the referee, and Angle slams him, be like, we're not ending it like that. Fuck no. Let's get it on. And the second thing was that Jeff Jarrett takes the guitar, slams it over Sting's head, and Sting no-sells it. He just does the classic scream in his face until beating the piss out of Jeff and then forcing him to submit to the Scorpion Deathlock. So Sting gets the NWA World title, only to lose it a month later to Abyss by disqualification, because for the longest time they didn't say, well, it's NWA rules. It's been something since day one. You lose the title by DQ. So we get this weird pairing with Abyss and Sting kind of fighting off each other. Christian actually wins the title in a 3-way dance, but that doesn't stop the matchups between Sting and Abyss, who during this time, Sting decides to go to Abyss and call him by his real name. He says, what's going on, Chris? And that's where we're seeing the seeds planted, where it's like, oh no, they're going to ruin the Abyss character. This is not good. Then we get 2 Vince Russo matches, which were a prison guard match where the 2 of them beat each other to the point where one of them had to get thrown into like this cage kind of deal. And then, oh, Mike, get ready for this one. A last rites match. Now, if you remember the last ride match, ladies and gentlemen, you had a hearse. You just threw the person in there, and the person is taken away on a hearse. That is a masterpiece compared to the last rites match, where literally you had to beat your opponent so bad, you shove them in a coffin, and then they ascend up into heaven for some strange-ass reason.
So it's a casket match with extra steps.
Yes.
Because it's fucking Russo, of course.
Yes. But don't worry, it gets better.
I forgot to say something. That's another person I've been blocked by on social media.
Vince Russo?
I have now 3 big name people on social media that have me blocked on Twitter.
Yay! No more Russo.
Vince Russo, Ryback, Chris Jericho.
Damn.
Trying to go for Kenny Omega.
I somehow see that could happen.
Speaking of which, Nate, I never told you this, but when they first ever debuted in Nashville at the fairgrounds, I used to go when it was called the Asylum.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
They
but
did. They did a couple shows for the Asylum there, so it was actually kind of cool when they did that. But don't worry, folks. We're getting to something better because during the transition of this year, which is about 2000 and trying to get my around 2007, 2008, roughly around that time. He actually starts getting involved in a feud with Kurt Angle, who's the TNA heavyweight champion at the time. Kurt Angle is just coming off of a huge win against Samoa Joe, where he won all the titles. He has the World Heavyweight title, the X Division title, and the tag team titles. And Jim Cornette, in his infinite wisdom, says, "Hey, you're going to defend all three of them in one night." And I was like, "Okay, this is actually kind of cool. I'm cool with this." So, problem: Kurt Angle doesn't have a partner. They have a fatal four-way matchup to determine who is going to be Kurt Angle's tag team partner going into the No Surrender pay-per-view to defend the tag team titles against, God help us, Team Pac-Man, Ron Killings, and Adam Pac-Man Jones.
we don't say that name, Nate.
Well,
God,
I have broken something here, but at the same time, it has to be said because it's part of history.
yes.
So they have the matchup, and
Wait. Back up. As in the football player?
yes,
yes,
Pac-Man?
yes.
Jesus Christ. I really missed out on that one because I didn't know that he ever went into TNA. Thank God I missed that.
he had like a couple sporadic appearances in TNA, but nothing memorable. So you didn't miss much. Oh wait, I stand corrected.
Clearly,
So-
I didn't miss anything.
So they do the match, and it looks like they're going to have like a spare off between Sting and Adam Pac-Man Jones. But earlier in the matchup, Sting is yelling at Karen to go to the back, and then Karen does her little actress training, falls to the ground like, "Oh, he hit me." Kurt Angle's like, "Bitch did what?" So he comes in, Angle slams Sting, intentionally costing them the tag team titles. So we can say
Is
Ron Killings
that
had
before or after Karen started sleeping with Jeff?
before. This is before. I wasn't going to get to that, but I'll address that.
I mean, I don't know if that was a literal, like, it turned into a story. I know they had a storyline with it, but
Yep. But I'm not going into that shit because that's just absolute shit. See where it was. Oh, okay. So we get one funny segment with this whole deal. So Sting has announced the number one contender for the world title at Bound for Glory. And Sting decides to play smart because he feels that Karen's going to get involved. So he actually puts a restraining order on Karen Jarrett during an episode of Impact, stating that she cannot come within like 50 to 60 feet of him from that point to Bound for Glory. And it's so funny because as soon as she gets it, she's like, you can't be serious. Sting's like, "Oh, I'm deathly serious. Also, less than 50 feet. And she's kind of cocky and arrogant at first, but then she realizes that this is a legal document. So she's scurrying away as Sting just gets closer. It's like, less than 50 feet, less than 50 feet. Oh, and then finally he's just like, he has this golden line of like, "Karen, look who's coming. It's the police." So the cops arrest her, take her away. And there's even a point where Sting just says like, "Karen, you do realize this is still less than 60 feet right here. This is like less than 40 feet at this point."
I have to ask Nate. Was this around the time Vince Russo was writing for them?
Yeah, still writing. I think Vince Russo
yeah,
still
because
writes for
Russo. I know Russo was a part of TNA for a little while, a couple of different times.
Yeah.
Because Cornette tried to make it work with him for the sake of the business, but it just eventually he couldn't, which is what caused Russo to become not only the head booker, but like the head agent and everything else. Because before that, Russo wasn't just the head head writer and booker and everything. He had Dutch Mantel, also known as Zeb Coulter for some people that don't know who Dutch is. He was one of the agents and the bookers. Savio Vega was one of the agents and producers. But the boys could, in the back, they said they could never really understand him. Buck Road Dogg, I think, was one of the agents backstage. Brian James.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So I mean, they had good people in the back, and they had decent funding. They didn't have Vince McMahon or Ted Turner money, but Dixie Carter had money that she could have. She wouldn't have been able to do as good as WCW had, but she probably at that time still could have tried to give WWE, I think still known as WWF at the time, a run for their money.
Mm-hmm. No, you're definitely right about that.
But that's everybody's greatest undoing is bringing in Vince fucking Russo.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm actually glad you're bringing this up, Nate, about Sting and Kurt Angle, because they had one of the best TNA matches that I've.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Kurt Angle in TNA was definitely one of his best, but the problem is that he also had to deal with a drug addiction. But his match at that year's Bound for Glory against Sting was really good. It ended with Sting winning the title again, which kind of turned into a bit of a deal where it almost felt like this was like an Undertaker streak, where anytime that Sting was booked in the main event, he was always going to win, which does kind of lose its flavor a little bit later on, but talk about that later. So after Sting wins the title, he then loses it to Kurt Angle a couple of weeks later. And they decide to make a tag team match for the world title where Kurt Angle and Kevin Nash would team up against each other. Well, team up with each other, but Jim Cornette's like, well, if they attack each other, that's not my problem. And they were going to team up against Sting and a partner of Sting's choosing, which would turn out to be the debuting five-time WCW champion,
King
six-time world champ. Yep, it was only Booker T. They didn't do King Booker in TNA, at least not the start.
No,
it got worse, but trust me, that is coming up real shortly. So Sting unfortunately loses that matchup. They have him do like a couple of random things here and there. Have him compete for the tag titles, have him in Lethal Lockdown. They don't do too much with him until the lead up for the next year's Bound for Glory. Because what ends up happening is that Sting has attacked AJ after a match with Kurt Angle, because after the match that AJ had with Kurt Angle, AJ decides to beat him down a little bit more. Sting attacks AJ there. After a match with Booker T, Sting has attacked Samoa Joe. And his reasoning behind it is that he says that all these little young guys were just turning into little spoiled brats, because he was thinking about retiring again. But then he was just like, I can't do that with this generation being a bunch of spoiled punks.
Are we getting to where we think? I think we're getting. Are we getting into the main event mafia?
We are exactly going into main event mafia territory.
I did like the main event mafia, boys.
So I'll transition into that. So Sting beats Samoa Joe at Bound for Glory for the third consecutive year, getting a TNA world title run, thanks in part to Kevin Nash getting involved. And this is where the main event mafia is born. So you have Sting, Kurt Angle, Booker T, Kevin Nash, and Scott Steiner deciding, hey, we're all world-class athletes. We're all world-class champions. We should all team up together and basically be called the main event mafia. My God, could you not make a second NWO better than the main event mafia, which had promise at the start? Trust me, you have all these guys seemingly getting like a second win here. They are starting to really build up. They're having some great high-level matches. Then comes in Mick Foley, who kind of ruins it a bit. So Mick Foley gives the main event mafia their first loss, and then he's eventually deemed the number one contender for the world title against Sting. And they are set to battle each other at Lockdown, which is their big event where they have all cage matches.
Yep.
So in this matchup here,
you think it would make the most sense to have maybe be a situation where you have a great finish where the two of them maybe fight to each other to a draw, or maybe it's like a dirty finish, a clean finish, something like that. What do we get? Foley wins the title by escaping the cage, because that was a thing that made sense, apparently.
I mean, that's an 80s, early 90s WWF gimmick for that too, for winning. Was climbing over the cage, because it added a little bit of suspense, because they climb it slow as hell so that they can pull some high spot off, like a suplex from the top of the cage inside, or like a superfly moment.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Shit like that. So, I mean,
If I'm not mistaken, Nate, around this time, didn't the main event Mafia screw Sting, or they kind of kick him out?
They slowly kind of get to it, because during the point of going into around 2011 to 2012, they started seeing friction between everybody within the main event Mafia, especially between Sting and, what a shock, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, he called himself the godfather of the main event Mafia. And he's like, oh, I really want to benefit for the family. But he brings in these two big guys as his personal bodyguards. He brings in a couple of women, Charmel and then Jen. Damn it. I realize we're going into the year where we have the worst matchup ever. Where it brings in Jenna from, I think it was like Survivor or something like that, as a financial ambassador, some shit like that. But Sting and Kurt Angle are just not seeing eye to eye. Kurt Angle is beating down Sting. Sting's beating down Kurt Angle. There comes a matchup where Sting becomes the Godfather, is trying to change everything. And at that point, that's where they're just like, yeah, no, we don't like this. Kurt Angle's ideas were better, so we're just going to beat the living piss out of you, which they did. Fast forward a bit to No Surrender before Bound for Glory. They have a huge multi-man matchup for the world title, which is won by AJ Styles. So we get AJ Styles versus Sting at Bound for Glory. Reason being is because they're making it seem like this is going to be Sting's last ever match.
I remember that. Yep.
And this was the match where Sting's streak comes to an end, because AJ Styles beats him with a springboard splash. He was doing a springboard 450, but I think where he was positioned, he couldn't get the torque to do the 450, so he ended up just doing a springboard splash to end it instead. Sting cuts an emotional promo at the end, basically stating the fact that, it's because of you fans. It makes me want to do this, more and more. So we're thinking, well, it might be the end of Sting. And then
this, and we're dealing with Hogan and Bischoff at this point now too, right? On top of Russo.
I was just getting to that.
He was getting to that, yeah.
So
because I think we're getting into the part of Sting's career that I actually loved more than the Crow gimmick.
Yeah, this is a really interesting time, because ironically enough, it comes full circle, and sometimes history likes to repeat itself. Eric Bischoff and Hogan are entered in. Sting is like, I don't know if this is a good idea. I mean, they're kind of backstabbers. They're kind of mean.
I do think that Hogan and Bischoff were around, or at least Hogan was around a year or so prior to that match too. Hogan was around in like 2008, 2009, I want to say, for TNA, but he wasn't really a big in-ring competitor because he was constantly having back surgeries.
Hogan signed around 2009, and he signed, but he didn't debut until they did that whole thing where they tried to debut on Monday night against Raw. That January 2010.
Yeah, and they brought back Bret Hart, which was like, oh yeah, you're gonna lose. There's no way. Yeah, so Sting's basically just playing the card of like, this is not a good idea, and Dixie's like, oh, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. I don't know why I'm making my Dixie sound like Dusty Rhodes, but she's got that Southern accent.
And he kept going after her.
I mean, she was a Southern gal.
Yeah,
she was.
So she's like, oh, it's going to be fine, Sting. It's going to be fine. After Bound for Glory, nope. They found out the hard way that Hogan and Bischoff were in business for themselves.
And Sting and Nash were just like, we've kind of been through this before. We've seen how this ends. We're just going to leave. So they
I like
leave
what
with
Nash
the
said in the
intention-
ring that day, because Nash said, "Look, at a time I was about the money, but now I'm more about my friendship." So
Yeah, I think he said something about how the Bible said that, gray hair represents wisdom, and he's learned a lot over the years. So that was probably one of my favorite Kevin Nash promos. So Sting is off TV for a while, and we get the whole Jeff Hardy title run. So TNA decide, you know what? They did this whole deal where Undertaker came back from like a house or something like that. They had like those cryptic house deals, which were supposed to be Sting. Unfortunately, they couldn't cut a deal with him, so it turned out to be Undertaker. They did similar to that, only not much in the way of a house, just literally showing a date. Sting come back, and he's a surprise opponent for Jeff Hardy, and he wins the world title off of him.
are we ever going to talk about that whole Jeff Hardy mess where he just
You are
No.
you guys are jumping the gun, because that is where it's transitioning to, because that's what happens next is the match at Victory Road between Jeff Hardy and Sting.
Where Jeff couldn't find his own goddamn feet.
It was a really horrible sight to see, ladies and gentlemen. He was in the worst condition of his life, literally drugged up out of his mind. People were wondering where he was. Then when his music was going, they're still wondering where he was. And then they finally found him, like, you have to go out. You have to go out. So he's coming out. He's literally just blitzed, gone. Sting sees this. He's not happy about it.
Sting's face said it all in that match. Like that, there was nothing to say.
Nobody was happy with that. Backstage, they weren't. Sting wasn't. The fans weren't.
Eric Bischoff wasn't.
Everybody was just literally like, why is this supposed, what the hell was this? So they get the instructions. Jeff doesn't care. Sting just hits the Scorpion Death Drop, holds a really long pin, and it's one of those pins where you look at it and you're just seeing how much force he's putting on Jeff to keep him down. And there's even a fan, as Sting was up, with the title, where he was like, that was bullshit. He was like, yeah, it was. So Sting then transitions over to a feud with Ken Anderson, Mr. Anderson, for those of you that like
Mr.
Anderson.
And
Yeah. Not Kennedy. Anderson.
so he transitions over to working with Immortal, wins the title off of Sting. And this is where, Mike's going to love this, Sting starts slowly losing the plot in this deal, because he starts haunting Hogan. He goes into the ring and he's got a bit of new face paint on. Sees it Bischoff, and he's just like, you're hurting my feelings, Eric. I just don't know what I'll do other than I'll probably just snap your scrawny little neck. He is just losing the plot, and people are just like, what's going on with Sting?
Oh, wasn't he like wearing like a Hogan shirt around that time too?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
So much good shit was happening with Joker Sting. He got the title back, and he's literally just like, I just want to fight you, Hulk Hogan. I just want to face you in a matchup. Hogan just continues like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. We get a couple of really good segments where Hogan's like, I just want to end this. Please, just anything you want, name it, I'll do it. And Sting's just like, how about you give milk and cookies to everyone? Colorful balloons, pony rides, flowers. Excuse me, I just love flowers, red and yellow, all over the place. Hulk stare. He's just driving him blitz. And this is also driving Ric Flair bananas, which we get a Sting and Ric Flair match. Oh my God. What the hell?
I remember the segment of Hogan doing a thing where he was looking like he was announcing his retirement, and Sting's like, no.
This was where we get the matchup where Sting is just like, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he's wearing a red suit, yellow shirt, just coming out being like, I want to believe that, but I know some good people here that showed me otherwise. Shows footage of Bischoff and Hogan being like,
being like, oh, I can't believe they took it hook, line, sinker. Ha ha ha. And then Hogan just like, I'll tell you, brother, I don't like this, brother. You know what? You push me to the limit. I'll fight you at Bound for Glory. You beat me. I'll give the company back to you and Dixie Carter. And Hogan's like, wait, what did I just say? The classic Sting of, got what I wanted. Ta-ta for now.
I'm not gonna lie. I like the whole little gimmick where he was pretending to be like the schlub for the friggin' higher ups inside of TNA, like from the network. Then he brings the freaking crow and he leaves the crow sitting in the office with Bischoff and Hogan for the night.
Oh my god, there's so many good Joker Sting segments that.
I have to ask you, Nate. Was the Joker Sting in that part? Was he trying to get Hogan to turn good again? Is that was his mission?
He was trying to show like the light that Hogan needed to see, because obviously he wanted to show, that Hogan was definitely a dastardly villain, but not quite a villain because there's still good in him. And at Bound for Glory, we get the match with him and Hogan, which is less said about the better. This is where Hogan makes his big return as a big baby face. Oh, I'm a good guy now, blah, blah, blah. And then
I remember that match when Sting was getting jumped. He's like, Hogan, help me. Hogan,
right?
help me.
So Sting then transitions into a GM-like role for a while. And during this time, he is pushed to his limits by one Bobby Roode, who is the TNA World Champion at the time. To the point where Sting literally has the phrase, I'm done. And this is one of my favorite segments of Sting, where Bobby Roode, he just comes out. He's like, Sting, I know that you wanted to just announce your retirement, but I just want you to know that I want to be here when you announce it, and you let people know that it's because of me that you're retiring. And Sting just is like, Bobby, you didn't win at all. And he's just grabbing the face paint. He's already just putting it on his face. He's going back to that Joker Sting deal where he's just like, I'm not going to be the good guy anymore. I'm going to get my gear on, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do at Victory Road, Bobby. I'm going to kick the living crap out of you. And Bobby has the best reaction of like, oh shit, what did I just do? So unfortunately, Sting falls short to Bobby Roode by unique means. So Sting has like the Scorpion Death drop set up. He hits it on Bobby Roode, but as he goes back, Sting hits the back of his head on a steel chair that was set up in the ring. So literally Sting lost because of that chair. It was a unique finish, but also one where I was like, kind of makes sense because I know how a steel chair feels against the head. It sucks.
That it does.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
So we could all agree on that. So after this, Sting then transitions into a feud with, God help us all, Aces and Eights. The little biker gang with their little motorbikes where they go ching, 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 ching.
Hey, that is arguably the best run of Bubba's career was as Bully Ray.
That is fair. That is fair. I will give credit where credit
I will take Aces and Eights Bully Ray over his entire Bubba Ray Dudley career any day.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what I loved about that segment with the Aces and Eights? There was one point where Sting had this Joker Sting and he had the cars. He goes, and he was over there going like, ironic, isn't it? And then all of a sudden he throws the bat and there's Hollywood Hogan. He's like Hulk? No, Hollywood. Right on. and we're sitting there thinking, oh wait a minute, so it's going to be Sting and Hogan teaming up. And I remember they got captured and they were like, me and Sting will face two of you guys right now. I was like, no. This isn't about you, Hogan.
Right. Exactly. So I think that it was supposed to be built as Sting and Anderson at one point, but then Anderson got took out, and that's where we get Bully Ray inserted into the mix. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we all know what happens with Bully Ray. He eventually reveals I'm the mastermind behind Aces and Eights. Sting, beforehand, he actually decides, okay, obviously I can't take on these guys by myself, so I think I need to bring my own faction. I need to bring family. I need to bring a mafia into this. So he decides to bring a new incarnation of the main event mafia, which this is where it's going to get interesting. It's going to be Sting,
Yeah.
Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, Magnus, and Rampage Jackson. Why? Because Tito Ortiz decided to join Aces and Eights, and they think, well, because they got a big fight that's going on between the two of them on pay-per-view, let's have them join the factions just so we can get a little more publicity.
I remember that because Spike TV had like Bellator.
Yeah.
They used to have, after TNA would air, Spike TV had the UFC, like their friggin' basically their Tough Enough show. So, I mean, it made sense that they would do that too. But I forgot that Tito Ortiz had joined Aces and Eights.
It was so underwhelming. It was an underwhelming reveal. So they get
again, though, that one was all kind of like when they would have Dennis Rodman join the NWO, and it was to drum up hype. It wasn't to do a damn thing for actual
effects,
for wrestling. It was to hype up the other shows on their networks.
I remember the Aces and 18 because I remember, Bully marrying Brooke Hogan, and it was going to, marry Brooke.
Did they actually go through with that wedding though, or wasn't it just he used it as a ploy to get close to Hogan and beat down Hogan?
It was interrupted, but I think that I think they were. I don't know, Nate. Were they technically married, or
technically they were married? Yeah, because the big segment from Lockdown was, of course, where Bully Ray has the title belt. He grabs the microphone and he just says, "Hogan, I used you. Brooke, I screwed you."
Yep, that's right. I remember that now.
And then I remember he brings out the real Brooke that he was with, Brooke Tessmacher.
Just because other Brooke decided to get engaged. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, wow, this is a precursor to Lana and Rusev, isn't it? Yep. Okay.
And now I heard from Bully, he said that was supposed to lead, in 2013, that was going to lead to a match between him and Hogan that he wanted.
Yeah.
But I think Hogan was so fucked up at that point, it was
scrapped.
Yeah, scrapped, not possible.
But during this time, we get Bully Ray versus Sting at a Slammiversary show, in which Sting had the stipulation put against him that if he lost, he would never challenge for the TNA title again. Bully Ray came out victorious, so Sting could not challenge for the title again. But as we're dwindling down to his TNA career end, it kind of changes a little bit in a weird way, and I'll explain. So Magnus slowly starts turning heel. He and Sting have a match at Bound for Glory, where Magnus beats Sting by submission, of all things. Interesting. It was with the Texas Cloverleaf, too.
Nice.
So Sting starts getting into a feud with Ethan Carter III, EC3.
Hell yes.
Literally saying to him, "Fight me, Ethan. Fight me. Come on, prove that you're not just Auntie's little boy toy shit." And EC3's just kept saying, no, no, no. And there's even one point where they do the Feast and Fired briefcase deal. For a lot of people that don't know, there's actually a match where there are 4 briefcases up in a corner.
Yep.
And you grab them down. 3 have title shots. 1 has a pink slip. So basically Sting was saying, hey, give this to me. Let me have the chance to possibly get fired and take that off of you. And EC3 is just like, nope, not happening. But of course, EC3 doesn't get fired. That doesn't happen for a few more years. So it's kind of one of those ironic things. But then finally, we get the match with Sting and EC3. And it's literally a Dixieland clusterfuck. And what I mean by that is that the odds are stacked against Sting. You have the bromans, Robbie and Jesse Goddard. Oh my gosh, I forgot about the bromans. They get involved. Rockstar Spud is being the referee. There's even one point where Sting literally is telling Spud to count, grabs Rockstar Spud's arm, and starts counting for him. Gets to 2, but unfortunately doesn't get to the 3 count until Magnus comes in. What a shock. He's wearing a ref shirt. EC3 rolls him up for a quick 3 count. EC3 gets a win on Sting. And then Sting's like, hey, be a man, face me one-on-one for that title. Magnus brings up the point of, Bully Ray beating him for the title, so he could not challenge anyway. But then Magnus is like, I will agree to this stipulation if you agree to not sign your extension for TNA. Basically, when I beat you, you're done. And that's how it was hyped up to be. Sting versus Magnus for the TNA World title. If Sting can't get the job done, he's gone.
And I remember this because Dixie ran away. Hogan left. And then I remember she basically screwed AJ Styles. And
Yep.
then Sting decides to leave because now he's finally like, okay, he leaves. But he doesn't. But as he put it, when he left, he had a conversation with Triple H in late 2013. But they didn't really start bringing him in until late 2014 because he came in for the whole Warrior thing, and then they had him come to Comic-Con, for his action figure, and he was a part of that wrestling video game, the 2K15. But when you guys were watching Survivor Series 2014 and you saw that Sting was coming down to the ring, what was your first reactions?
I was hyped beyond fuck. That was not only a good match, but that was an amazing moment when Sting came out.
It was an amazing finish too, and that was an excellent Survivor Series matchup and pay-per-view to me. Sting making his debut, albeit unfortunately his run for WWE was fairly underwhelming, but that is by no means his fault.
No, it was definitely not. Because, let's face it, we get the build-up to WrestleMania, and it's basically announced like, oh, it's going to be WWE versus WCW. Why? We've already seen that, and we know how it always ends with these kind of matches.
And that was really the only holdout from WCW that Vince was never able to actually beat, which is unfortunately why nepotism won that match.
So I've actually found out something about that match that I did not know. Originally, according to Bruce Pritchard, Triple H was lobbying for Sting to beat him. It was Vince.
I think the match should have ended as a double knockout, double KO. Not like a double count out inside the ring, but or outside the ring, but they just had such a knockdown, drag out, burner fight that both men just passed out in the ring.
And another thing, the reason why Vince wanted Triple H to win was because originally,
also I think they dropped the ball with the DX versus NWO part of it. If they would have been really the way I would have booked it for that, you had DX come out to help Hunter, but the one you didn't have come out was Shawn. You had the Outlaws, you had X-Pac. They should have flip-flopped that. You have Shawn come out with the Outlaws, keep X-Pac back. Have X-Pac come out with the NWO, then hit Sting with the X Factor since he was a part of both factions. And to me, I think that would have, if you were going to have Triple H go over because of some kind of interference, instead of Shawn coming out and hitting sweet chin music, X-Pac should have hit, or Six should have hit the X Factor, which could have set up the sledgehammer shot or a pedigree, something. I think that, to me, that would have been a better storytelling, because only people that actually knew one of the original iterations of the NWO and the story and everything would know that X-Pac had been a member of both factions.
What's interesting is they said that Kevin Nash said in his podcast that Scott
tore his quad on the way down to the ring. Surprise.
Well, one thing he was saying was that when they were doing the run, when they were doing the thing before the show, they were going for the run through. He said him and Scott and Hulk were sitting there, And then Triple H said, I'm going to let you guys know that I'm going over on Sting. And Scott and Hulk looked at him like, what the fuck? Are you serious? Like, you're not going to let Sting win his first WrestleMania. Are you guys shit me? And
his only WrestleMania.
And Triple H said the reason why was because apparently WrestleMania 32 was supposed to be him and The Rock, which never happened. And they wanted, and Vince wanted Triple H to look strong. So, but what's ironic about that WrestleMania was that Sting and Undertaker shared a locker room with each other.
God.
For the first time in years.
They shared a locker room together, and they took the flight together the next day. And I remember seeing that airport photo, and everybody was like going like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! There they are, both of them together." And Sting kept lobbying. So we didn't see Sting for a while, and then we were thinking, "Well, okay." There was a rumor going around that Sting was going to team with Undertaker and Kane to face the Wyatt family. That
could have been a good feud.
That was something that was talked about. But then I actually liked this one though. They had the Seth Rollins statue, and there was Sting standing right there where the statue was.
That was amazing.
I loved that. I'm glad that Rollins has, for the most part, stopped doing the buckle bomb, but god damn unfortunately, when it comes to clearing people from medical, WWE is one of the strictest I have ever seen. Because he retired because of the buckle bomb for WWE.
You know what's interesting about that one, Nate, is during that feud with Seth Rollins, he kind of lets out the Joker Sting a little bit when he pushes that statue into the trash can.
I remember that.
When he's riding on, woo! So he had a little bit of the Joker Sting come out a little bit.
I did love that where he's just on the side of the trash truck and just going like, "See you at Night of Champions," like a Willy Wonka kind of deal.
But what was great was Sting was in some excellent shape for that match with him and Rollins. Like he looked.
Oh yeah,
he looked great.
He definitely took a lot of seriousness when it came to this matchup. It's just like Mike said, unfortunately, it ended in tragedy with that buckle bomb because you see it literally in the matchup where Sting is not 100% there, and it's unfortunate because of the fact of how he landed on that, with that buckle bomb.
Yep, and Seth knows it too, and Seth to this day, I bet, still feels like shit for it.
Because he was a big Sting fan growing up as a kid, so yeah, it really hurt him that he. But then again, Sting said that he took the buckle bomb wrong. It wasn't Seth's fault that he took it the wrong way, which, I mean, if you're looking at it at a 50-something-year-old man should not be taking 2 buckle bombs. That's
to a degree, Sting can take that and say that. But when you're up and you're in that position, you're kind of at the other guy's mercy still too.
Yes, you are.
When he launches you, if he's not close enough with the launch or if he's too close, that's not on the guy taking it. Which really is what it was that it boiled down to, is he was too close. He was. It wasn't anything Sting could have done. It was just poor placement.
There was something good about Sting's run that I did like. He did block Stephanie from smacking him like she usually smacks everybody. So he did stop her from doing that, which was. And he's like,
I just love the build-up for again. I think for this part, it was a build-up that was great to an underwhelming match. Was the WrestleMania fight?
Now, Taker was here in Nashville and he did like a one-night special, and some guy asked him in an interview, asked him out in the fans, so what about, was WrestleMania 32 supposed to be you and Shane? He said no. WrestleMania 32 was supposed to be him and Sting. And apparently Sting was for it. Taker was for it. Taker knew they probably weren't going to have the best match in the world. But he was talking about. They were talking about doing a. They were talking about doing like a one of those, those match that kind of like AJ and him had at WrestleMania 36.
Oh, cinematic style match.
Yeah, cinematic style. They were talking about doing that already then, but Vince would not clear Sting, and he had doctors clearing him. And so at that point, Sting was like, "Well, fuck it, I'm just going to retire at my Hall of Fame speech."
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the same time, really, what choice did he have? Is Vince going to let Sting go over his boy? I mean,
I see what. Yeah.
I mean, unless Taker looks at Vince and says, Sting's going over. Because that would have been the only way that would have actually been able to happen, is because Vince would have listened to Taker.
Do you guys believe Sting when Sting said if he would have had that match with Taker, he wouldn't be wrestling now?
No, I think he still would have. I think he still eventually would have signed with AEW.
It is kind of one of those things where I think, in the moment, I would believe that. But yeah, no, Mike brings up a good point. We're going to be talking about it. He had another opportunity to kind of, resurge and really rebuild his career again to end on his terms in AEW. And now he's literally doing some great stuff with Darby Allin. He's helping Darby Allin, become a bigger star than what he already is. And I'm sure that, the final match that we have from Sting is going to be in AEW. And it's going to be one that we really will just be, grateful for the fact that, Sting is going to, end it on his terms. Which I
really do love that tag match they have with Sting and Darby Allin versus Taz's boys. That little cinematic match they had.
Hey, Team Taz is no more because Brooklyn said so.
And we got to talk about those things where Sting nose sells. Wasn't it perfect that he nose selled the fucking super kick from the Young Bucks?
Oh my God! At Forbidden Door.
Yeah.
I was there for that pay-per-view that night in Chicago, and what they do not show is the part that I die laughing at. Is he no sells it, does his little comeback. As soon as that spot is over, if you watch the replay, the cameras had already panned off of him by that point. In the ring, he collapses. He goes down. He finally takes the bump.
He pulls a Ric Flair.
He essentially does a flare. He does the front face first flare flop.
Oh.
So they go through that whole spiel of him doing his version of a Hulk up, I guess. Beating down both the Young Bucks, which, God, I could watch that on repeat for a year straight and not get bored of it. That's just because of my disdain for the Young Bucks for a whole different reason.
I'm with you on that one with the Young Bucks.
I would have loved if they would have just kept it where, Sting does the no-sell, does the scream, beats everybody down, and then he's just like, I did it. Flop, falls down, just like all his energy's gone in that moment.
Essentially, without screaming or yelling or saying, I did it, that's essentially what it was, Nate. Is he had that, he did the little pander to the crowd, and then...
Actually, when we're talking about the no-selling from Sting, I remember we talked about this, Nate, with the Flair one. The two best people to no-sell Flair's chops were Sting and Hogan.
That is true.
And when, Sting would do the whole... And Sting would do some real good no-selling throughout his career. It was just like he'd stand there, he'd get knocked out, and he'd come right back up and look at you.
Yeah, it was almost like when Ultimate Warrior took the pedigree and stood right back up.
Oh, God.
But here's something for you, too. One thing that I did not like about WrestleMania 31 is there's Triple H coming out with the Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Terminator stuff. And then they have, this Japanese thing for Sting.
Are you suggesting that they bring RoboCop out of retirement just for this WrestleMania?
I'm suggesting we have the Shockmaster come out and something like that.
I know. But come on, Terminator versus RoboCop. Who doesn't want to see that?
I've already seen that. It's called Epic Rap Battles of History.
And there was a video game back in the day on Sega Genesis. Okay,
Yes, there was. I remember that.
Yes, so we've already been through that. But I will say this though about Sting's time in WWE though, I give him the credit for trying.
Yeah,
I mean, he should have done it back in 2002. I mean, but when he saw that The Rock said that thing about Booker T about who the blue hell are you, he was like, well, they're just gonna bury WCW people.
and essentially that's what Vince did at the time, and that's why all the big name guys just they elected to sit out the rest of the contract. They were getting paid.
Could you imagine if they would have had all the WCW guys sign and they did that whole invasion angle then?
If you would have been able to have Goldberg, Sting,
Gold turd.
Sting,
Gold turd.
because there were some guys that flopped, and unfortunately, one of the ones that they flopped the hardest with for that was Paige.
Well,
DDP was one of the biggest baby faces for WCW.
Yep.
And they bring him in as a stalker, stalking the Undertaker's wife, and then bury him.
Well, according to Nate, and I went back and I watched it, he was sitting right behind Undertaker and Michelle McCool at Ric Flair's last match, so he was in the shadows.
Funny how 20 years later, nothing has changed.
Yeah, but that's not Sarah, so that's different.
Yes.
Fair.
Yeah, they really did screw DDP on that. I mean, that was, I mean, I like how they made Booker come in, though. They made Booker look strong, but
they made Booker look strong. They made Rob Van Dam look good. But as it goes since they pretty much just had all the lower card guys for WCW for the invasion, you had to have guys like not Triple H, because he was off with the quad injury at that point. You had to have Stone Cold, the Dudleys. You had to have Christian, I think, Christian did not. Yeah, he did turn heel and join it. But that's because he started feuding with Edge.
Yeah.
I think Jericho joined it too at one point.
No, Jericho stayed Team WWF, but him and The Rock were having a thing. So
Jericho didn't turn it on to the invasion. He was just a butthurt.
It was Kurt Angle that turned the debate.
Yeah, Kurt went over to the Alliance, but he was like the mole for Vince on the inside. Because they sold that story afterwards to have a build-up with The Rock and Kurt Angle.
Right.
Can you imagine that invasion pay-per-view? They could have had Sting versus Taker, Hogan. Sting versus Taker. They could have had Austin versus Goldberg. And they could have had.
I would not have wanted to see that. I would have wanted to see Sting and Taker, sure. I would not have wanted to see Sting and Taker and Austin and Goldberg.
I would have had Hogan versus Austin at that point. If it was Hollywood and Hogan, I would do it. But
I mean, that was originally meant to be a planned match. That was, I think, supposed to be Austin at 18 instead of The Rock originally. They were trying to pitch Austin and Hogan, and
Stone Cold was at that point where he was just like, you know what, I'm tired, I'm beaten up. I don't think Hogan can hang with me, and that's what happened. But you know what would have really been cool for that invasion? We could have had a People's Champion versus People Champion, DDP versus The Rock.
See, that would have been a good one, because I do believe DDP was calling himself the People's Champ before The Rock.
Yes. He was.
All right. So I want to say one thing before we digress back to Sting. I will say this, Mike. I kind of would love to see Stone Cold versus Goldberg. If I could only see one of two things. Either one, Goldberg goes for the spear and then Austin just catches him with the stunner. Or Goldberg goes for the jackhammer and he just DDPs him into the stunner. I know that's like a huge pipe dream for Austin to do that. I don't think he would have been that athletic, but just imagining him just going up for the jackhammer, but then Austin just counters it into a stunner. That would have been.
Oh, you know what I would have loved to see with that? You know what I would have loved to see in that? While he has Austin in the jackhammer, Bret Hart comes and kicks him in the face.
Bret Hart comes back out of retirement and just super kicks him. Holy shit! Bret Hart knows how to super kick.
It'd have to just be a drop kick at that point because I don't
Yeah.
want to see him try to do a super kick because then it's going to look like Shawn Michaels. Let him just do a drop kick. That way he can hit both of them because he had such big feuds with both men.
It's the Heartbreak Brett.
Or he could have cracked Goldberg over the head with a chair at that point or something. And just nailed him.
One of those old-fashioned wooden chairs.
My God.
That's like the one that takes like 15 minutes to set up because you don't know how to set. I had one of those chairs and it was a pain in the ass to do. But anyway, so closing on Sting is that, yes, he's definitely had one of those careers where he was like, there are a lot of bullshit moments. And we have talked about them immensely, whether it was him and Jeff, him and Triple H, him and Hogan. But despite all of that, Sting is the one guy that I truly look at and think nobody could bury this guy. He went through shit and he still found a way to stay relevant with the fans. Even he was given shit and he was still relevant. This guy is probably better than Chris Jericho when it comes to giving shitty stuff and being like, I'll turn it into a chicken salad. Are you kidding me?
I forgot to mention this during the Wolfpack days, but him and the Warrior actually teamed up on a Nitro.
Oh.
Versus Hogan and Brett.
Is this when it was the OWN, the one Warrior?
Yeah. And I remember when Warrior came out and interrupted Sting, and he was like, I imagine your career from afar as you and I go back into one. And Sting's like, okay, what the hell? I'll team up with you, whatever. I mean, but one thing, too, that Nate's right about Sting is he never complained.
No, hardly ever did Sting complain. He did what was asked of him. So, gee, sounds like a lot of people with a different company do what we ask and we get shit on.
Well,
yeah,
you know, but it is what it is. So, with that, you guys, I'm actually going to head out, but this has been a really fun show. Thank you guys for having me on, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the next retrospective is going to be.
What is the next one supposed to be, Kev?
We're gonna go with the guy that we all wanted to see him face. We're gonna go with Taker.
I was hoping so. That one is definitely one that I don't know if people can tell. I'm kind of sitting here rocking a little bit, and that's because albeit situationally, this massage pad really helps my back until I stop, and then it hurts like hell.
Yeah, I mean, Nate just left, but we just did the whole Sting thing, and we had to bring up some crappy parts of his career, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, and everyone's got shitty versions. They're all gonna have down parts in their careers. I mean, I guess with the exception of Taker, which we'll cover that one another day, obviously.
Yeah,
because I mean really the only down parts of his career, I think, would have been like 92 to 95. And it was booking decisions then still. It wasn't even anything to do with Taker.
It was a booking decisions with Taker, like as far as putting him with guys like the Giant Gonzalez and all this other bullshit.
Gonzalez, I mean, he had a match with Charles Wright, at the time known as Mustafa, before he became the Godfather, when he was still part of they had the $1 million club or something like that, or the $1 million.
You remember they were trying to get him to feud with Nails?
Yep,
that was a bad thing in itself. So yeah. Taker and Sting's careers are kind of parallel. They're kind of parallel with each other.
Oh yeah, they both took gimmicks that, if you tried to probably introduce them in this day and age, they probably would not get over too well. But for when they started their gimmicks, they are two men that have stood the test of time, just like the Nature Boy. As much as I hate when I gotta give this man credit. Both of them. Warrior and Hogan, they're both as shitty of people as those two are. off cameras, their names have stood a test of time. People know who the Ultimate Warrior is, and even people that don't watch wrestling and have never watched wrestling for the last 30 years have known. They know who Hulk Hogan is. So then some may know who Ric Flair is, some may know who the Undertaker is, but the two names, well, now actually you could say three. The three names synonymous with wrestling now that people are going to know are Hulk Hogan, The Rock, and John Cena without even having to watch. And that's just because those three men have literally transcended just the wrestling industry.
Yeah.
They, for good or for bad or for whatever reason that they've managed to transcend. Whether it be because of Hollywood or a mixture of Hollywood and Make-A-Wish, or just because they became a pop culture icon.
I will promise everybody one thing. When you see the Hollywood gimmick that I have coming in, it ain't gonna be Hollywood Hogan. He's gonna be a lot better than Hogan. Trust me.
Well, I can't wait to see what Hollywood KD looks like.
Yeah, I've been working on it. So he's a little, it's a work in progress, but he's you know, he might have a little bit of mannerisms of some parts of Hogan, but not like to the point where we're gonna be like, hey, that doesn't work for me, brother.
And as it goes, like I said in the comments of the earlier video today,
Mm-hmm.
if you end up watching this Bell Witch, when I'm 100%, that challenge is out there. I am going to stand the test of time and say I am the nicest asshole you will ever fucking encounter. And you will literally have to put me 6 feet under to take that title away from me, and I will fight to keep that title.
I just will have to say for you too, Bell Witch, if you and Courtney have that match, I will not.
I'm not refereeing that.
No.
Keep the fucking mayonnaise away from me.
But the one thing too that I forgot to add about Sting is that not only did he stand the test of time, not only has he changed his character over time, but Sting is a guy who he comes into work, he punches in, he punches out. He hasn't had that too many bad injuries.
No, he hasn't overall. And he's a guy who's willing to work through them, to work through the ones that he has had, that as long as they're not too major.
And he's willing to work with anyone, which is something that's very rare. Like from another company we know, they only bring you in to lose. But
yeah, he'll put people over, he'll take a W, he'll take an L. So,
and that's pretty much what I want to do with when I come into MCW. I don't want to just be about the W and the L. Like if I feel like an L is going to help benefit someone else, I'll take it.
Yep. And that is one of the reasons why I can't wait to get into the ring with the crew that we have. I can't wait to get a chance to work with every single one of them.
But could you just imagine a main event Mafia with me, you, and Nate?
Well,
I mean, MCW be in trouble.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because we'd all be fighting amongst each other though for those two titles. You got the King of the Cage and you got the MCW heavyweight title.
If you're listening, Superstar, and I know you are probably.
He did tell me he was gonna check it out, but I don't know if he's listening yet. I know he said he had some stuff going on with his son and his daughter. So
yeah, I sent him the link earlier if you wanted to be a part of it. But if I have to find a way to get this match to happen, we need to see another match between you and him. I mean, if we gotta get it to happen, we gotta get it done.
Hey, that challenge is always out there. All Superstar has to do is just show up.
And Superstar, if you want to call it right down the middle, then damn it, I'll just referee it. So that way it's called right down the middle. But you won't be able to have your crew with you though this time, unless you have Courtney come out with you. But anyways, though, is there anything you want to add with Sting there, PK? Or you?
No, I think we covered it all. I mean, there were parts that you and I knew better than Nate, and then I was trying to jog my memory, and then there were parts obviously that Nate was a hell of a lot better at remembering, because I couldn't tell you a whole lot of TNA runs, Sting, if my life depended on it.
I knew about 75% of the TNA Sting, but I did not know all of what Nate said at the beginning. I'm like, I knew toward the end of like when he joined the first Main Event Mafia and to that point, but
see, I knew about the second iteration with Samoa with Joe. But that was because, like I said, when I first started watching it, and I saw the sixth, like I didn't understand the X Division title because they had it like it was the ladder style, but you had to climb the freaking rope or basically tightrope yourself to get the belt to get it down. I didn't like that. To me, that always seemed like a dangerous idea.
There's actually someone in the comment section that said the Sting does not like being called Flash Borden. He hates.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Yes, he does.
I'm not sure who the Great Duke brothers or Duke Bothers.
He's a buddy of mine. He's a part of the football stuff.
Okay.
He's a big Dallas.
But when are we going to do? I mean, I know this isn't Sting related, but when are we going to get a few of those going with a group?
Yeah,
of
I know. I'm working on that now, actually, because we don't get the season starting. And
okay, yeah. Now that we're getting closer, we got the first preseason games this weekend.
Yes, and I know that Duke Botters is a big Dallas Cowboy fan, which is I can't.
It ain't your year either. Don't worry, it ain't going to be Green Bay's.
I mean, I just would like to see. I would like to hear everybody's talk. I'm going to get that going, guys, soon. Where we're going to have everybody come in here to do their picks for the season, who they think is going to make the playoffs, who's not going to make the playoffs, and kind of looking forward to it. Some people are claiming that they think the Rams is going to repeat, so we'll see. That's
I don't think that one's going to happen. I think they lost too many players.
I think
because Odell is still a free agent technically too now.
Yes, he is. Which means he can sign anywhere he wants.
There's some people that I know that are like, oh my God, he should sign in Green Bay. Well, let's see what happens when his leg heals. We've already got two guys that are on the north side of where they should be. And
I just want to throw this out about Aaron Rodgers. I think it was pretty cool that he came to training camp looking like Nicolas Cage from Con Air.
Oh my God.
That was
yes. I died laughing when I saw that.
But at least he's deciding to stay. So now you guys don't have to deal with the whole, well, is he going to stay? Is he not going to stay? At least you know now he's.
Yep, he's re-signed for the next few years. I don't know how much of it is guaranteed. Don't really care, to be honest, because I don't pay the paycheck. I just watch the game.
Now, one thing I have noticed here, as far as my team goes, everybody's picking the Colts to win the division because of Matt Ryan joining the Colts. But we'll see.
I don't know. I've been hearing a lot of reports coming out of Indianapolis that right now that the team is not in a good place.
I heard
and that is because I guess behind closed doors, Matt Ryan is a freaking dickbag asshole to work with.
Matty Ice, yeah, he is. I heard he's a dickbag. So we'll see what happens. I still believe that we're going to repeat the AFC South. I don't see us losing that.
Oh yeah, I could see that one happening, especially if Derek is 100% all year.
The one thing I will say this about Ryan Tannehill, but I know this is off topic, but one thing I will say about Ryan Tannehill is, from what I've heard about him in training camp, I guess that loss to Cincinnati really did a number on him because he's coming in with like a fire.
He's got a big chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, people have never seen him play this good before, and we'll see. how that progresses throughout the season. But
Yeah, we will have to.
it's a make or break thing for him, I think. But anyway, though, we'll get some football stuff going. We're also going to get we're also going to do the next big old pro wrestling biography is going to be The Undertaker, Mark Calloway, which is my personal favorite. So I'm looking forward to this one because we can dive in even more with Taker. And I want to say fuck you, WWE, because you didn't tell anybody about him signing the day before SummerSlam, and I found out about it an hour before the show starts. So you can go fuck yourselves on that one.
Another wrestling note: there might be another return coming after a contract expires in AEW, but we don't know yet. We might be getting the Bulgarian Brute back in WWE. He's gone on and he's admitted on his. I don't necessarily know if it was his Twitter, but I know he's had a interview with people like Wrestle Talk that Miro says that he had it better in WWE than he's had it in AEW.
And Andrade's not happy either.
It would make sense for Andrade to come back. It'll make sense for Alistair, Malachi to come back. I mean, both of those men have wives that are under WWE contract still. So,
I was going to ask you real quick before we end this. What do you think of the moves that Triple H has made so far?
I think they're all going to be for the better, and if they keep making the moves that they are doing and trying to, I do feel bad for some of the guys because there are some people that are worried about their push coming to an end because Triple H is more based on your actual in-ring ability versus your look.
No.
Vince was always like, he loved the giant guys. He loved the guys that are like Big Show size or almost. Or as Cornette likes to call him, almost. Because he's almost a wrestler. But I don't hold almost to any. I think they started pushing him a little too fast, and he's still fairly green. But that's just my take on him. But I think he has potential.
I know that there was a part on Raw where everybody was making fun of Bayley for looking like a soccer mom, but
she's had that soccer mom look for a while. But I'm actually really interested to see where this little faction of hers is going to go.
And then the rumor is that Sasha and Naomi resigned, so we'll see how that.
Another one that I just saw today is potentially it's a long shot because I think she's back in Japan now, but I don't think she's under a contract.
Kairi
They might re-sign Kairi Sane.
Yeah.
Which I would love to see because the Kabuki Warriors were a really great tag team.
And they're finally pushing Shayna Baszler, which is something I've been wanting to see for a while. But
see, I'd love to see if you're actually going to have Ronda be the way she's supposed to be, and I don't know if they're going to use her as a heel or a baby face, and I'm not sure what the hell Shayna is right now, if she's a heel or a baby face, but you could build up a legitimate. Those two women have a lot of friendship and mutual respect for each other. And if you wanted to try to have a gimmick match, you could bring back like a Lions Cage match. Like the Owen Hart, Dan Severn, Ken Shamrock thing. Have those two duke it out.
Yep. And I'm excited to see what's going on, but in the comments below, guys, when you guys see the video later, let us know some of your favorite Sting moments. I forgot to ask Nate what his favorite Sting moment was before he left, but I have quite a few, but I will say that one of my favorite moments is Sting coming down from the rafters. He's beating up some of the NWO members, and he's picking up Diamond Dallas Page, and he's got Page in between his legs going up.
Yep, just kind of hooks him into the harness with them, and
Page said he was scared to fucking death when it happened. But
I don't blame him because Sting wasn't holding on to him. He's supposed to act like he's limp and he's just in that harness. So if that harness fails, yeah, Sting has no way to hold on to him and be like, all right, I got you, buddy.
Another one of my moments that I liked is kind of cool was that I like that Survivor Series moment, but I like the one where they were surrounding Randy Orton and the lights come out and Sting is standing in the ring and Randy Orton's looking at him like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, there's some cool Sting moments.
I did like the moment in TNA where Sting comes out to like protect Hogan and he turns and he points the bat up underneath of like Hogan's chin, and then Hogan and Sting clear house of aces and eights.
Yeah, I like that one too. Yeah.
So I feel like as many good matches Sting has had, for everything that's turned out to be a dud for a match, the build-ups for him have been phenomenal. So
I do agree with Taker on one thing. The build-up for him and Sting's match would have been outstanding.
yeah.
I think that Taker was worried that the match wouldn't have been as good, and especially after that debacle he had with Goldberg at Saudi Arabia. I think he was a little worried about that.
And I can't believe I'm doing this one again or defending another person I can't really stand. But in Goldberg's defense, he got concussed like almost out of the fucking blocks in that match. So both men were hurt. Taker was hurt because he almost spiked Goldberg once or twice. And then Goldberg's atrocious-looking jackhammer because he was concussed.
He almost broke Taker's neck.
Yep. But
anyway, folks, we just dived into Sting. Like PK said, we knew some early parts of Sting. Nate knew the TNA part of Sting, and then we all kind of knew the rest of it. And so we're going to have Undertaker next. And then for some of you football guys, I'm going to be messaging you later because I'm going to get a bunch of us together and we're going to talk about the NFL.
I know you can.
And maybe we might get that Travis Staley guy in here so you guys can duke it out again. Anyway, but we I appreciate PK coming in. I appreciate Nate coming in, and hopefully sometime soon when we do some of these bios, we'll finally get the superstar in here finally.
God, I hope so. We'll probably have to do like the best of like Chief J Strongbow for his bitch ass to show up.
or Nature Boy Buddy Rogers maybe, or something like that, or Adrian Adonis.
Adrian Adonis, Gorgeous George. Goddamn fruitcake superstar. He's been ducking me for months.
But we'll definitely see you guys very soon. We'll get it all set up. And by the way, show your support. If you see the NCW YouTube channel, which will be, I think Kago said, everything's going to be going live pretty soon. So show some love for us on that part. And the Patreon page will be up soon. So if some of you guys are a fan of wrestling, you guys should pay the membership to see.
Yeah, if you got a custom match idea or custom challenge that you want, all you got to do is email that, and we'll do our best to get it to you in a timely manner, depending on who you're requesting. Some are easier to get a hold of than others. But on that note, my furry child, my four-legged furry child, is telling me that it is time to do her business. So
yes,
I'm out. And have a good night, and thanks for having me on, Big Kev.
No problem, man. We'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.